Hello and welcome to my channel, In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne, and can you believe it's already time to talk December reading plans? How crazy is it that we are already at the end of November, looking right into December? How many of you all have done Christmas shopping? At the time I am recording this, I've done a grand total of, you see that zero? Why does it not look like a zero? Zero. I've done zero Christmas shopping. Well, that's not 100% true. I have bought some stocking stuffers. Yes. Yay me! Stocking stuffers. I have done some contemplating. My husband has done a little bit of hunting for our son's gifts, and we've decided mostly what those will be, but yeah, not a lot happening here. But I have my December reading plan in place. The important things, right? Priorities, very important. So what am I reading in December? First of all, there is the Remember December readathon, which I am very excited to participate in. So there are a whole bunch of hosts for that one. I will link to their channels in the description box below. I heard about it first on Miss Reads a Lot, her channel, and Scallydindling about the book. So that I will link all the hosts' channels below. Basically the idea is to reread books in December, and there are several different categories. So that's one of the things I'm doing in December. So I will get into a little bit more detail of the books for Remember December in a minute, but first let me just finish my overview. So I participate in a couple of other reading challenges, year-long reading challenges. One is the What the Dickens Facebook book club. Whew, takes me, I have to say that so carefully. Anyway, they are reading A Christmas Carol for December, which would be a reread for me. I've read it many times and I've seen the play, etc. I think that I probably will listen to it, but more on that in a minute. Then I have the Read Your Shelf challenge with Chantal Reads All Day. We are in the last month of the 2023 challenge. So hard to believe. I have managed to keep up with that challenge the whole entire year. And this month's challenge is to read a book that is within 20 pages of the page count of the book that you read in November. And that was extremely difficult for me, so I'm gonna have to use a little bit of help to nail that one down. And then I am doing with the, oh goodness, what is this called? The Ink and Tea Society, oh my goodness. The Tea and Ink Society Classics Reading Challenge that I do with friends of mine and my sisters. The prompt is to read a classic set in a place that you want to visit. And then finally, I just have a book or two here that I just really want to read. The December seems like a perfect time to read them. And finally, I have a huge list of a pile of possibilities of Christmas reading, including short novellas by contemporary authors, as well as short stories and poems, etc. by classic authors. So let's start digging into the nitty gritty. Let me start with one that I did not mention, which is Advent Readalong, together with Christy at Dostoevsky in Space and Emma from the Bookish Princess and a couple of other hosts. They are reading a play by Dorothy Sayers called He Who Should Come, and I'm very excited to read this. I've only read one book by Dorothy Sayers called The Mind of the Maker, and I've read an essay written by her, which is essentially like required reading for every classical educator in the current modern classical movement, about repairing the lost ruins, I think is the name of the essay, which is about education. But other than that, I have not read anything by her. So, and she wrote in a variety of different genres. So I really liked The Mind of the Maker, although she was obviously an incredibly intelligent woman, because that book was very intellectual, and I had to stop and think about like every little bit. Like I couldn't, it wasn't easy to just like read through. Hopefully the play will be a slightly different experience, because I'm not really in the mood for anything super deep or definitely not tragic or anything like that in December. I'm going to be doing all of the mood, cozy, comfort reading, quick reading for sure. So anyways, but I am looking forward to joining in with the read along on that and participating with them. So for the Remember December, let's talk about that for a little bit. They have 3 categories or prompts, and I would like to get to all 3 of them if I can in December. We'll see. The first one is reading a book in a different way than you read it before. And for that one, I want to read a gospel primer for Christians, which I have mentioned before on this channel. And some of you have expressed interest in it. So my invitation is I would love to do this as a buddy read, to read it in a different way. If anybody would love to buddy read it with me in December, please let me know in the comments and we can chat about that. It is less than 100 pages. It is not a big time commitment, and it's really a great read for December. So I think that you will really love it. So if anybody is interested in joining me as a buddy read, let me know. Otherwise, I will probably do it as a read aloud, since I did not read it aloud the last time that I read it. So that is for that prompt. And then another one, you're supposed to read a book that you have basically forgotten. And thank you to you all for helping me choose that one. I had several classics that I read 20 some years ago, completely forgotten by this point what it's about, other than, you know, the main thrust of the story. And you guys helped me choose Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. So I need to get myself a copy of that because I don't actually own one currently. So I need to get a copy of that, and I will be reading that in December and looking forward to that. And then I had mentioned this in my video about books that you've probably never heard of. And talking about it just got me very interested in reading it. So I am going to reread it for Remember December. And this prompt is to revisit a book you've read before to see if your opinion has changed. And I'm very curious to see if my opinion has changed on this trilogy, because I loved it so much the 3 other times I read it, but maybe, you know, I would have a different perspective now. I'm curious to see if my opinion has changed, if I still love it as much as I did, or if it has lost a little bit of its luster in the pursuing years since the last time I read it. So this is actually a trilogy, so it's 3 books, and they kind of all have to be read together in order for the story to make sense. None of them are standalone. So I have to read all 3 books. So it's a bit of a commitment, but they're quick reads. It's not a difficult one to read. And I loved it in the past, so assuming I love it again, it won't take me long to read. So that is for Remember December. I already mentioned for my Facebook book club, we are reading A Christmas Carol, and I have this ancient cheapo copy from Walmart. Do they still sell those, by the way? Like those really super cheap classics. This was probably when I was a teenager I picked this one up. But I think this one I would like to do as an audio book this time around, just because. Miriam from Miriam Elizabeth Reads has talked several times about a book that sounded really interesting to me, called The Enchanted Sonata by Dixon, and I bought it for my Kindle, so I'm looking forward to reading that in December. It's based on the Nutcracker story, but it's kind of like a fantastical, well, I mean, it's kind of a fantasy story anyway, or fairy tale sort of story, but anyway, I'm looking forward to reading that one in December also, just because it interests me and this seems like a good time of year to read it. And by the way, Miriam has a fantastic video of Christmas recommendations. I've read quite a few of the ones on her list, and they're all really good Christmassy reads. So if you're looking for Christmas reading inspiration, you can check out her video also. I will link it in the description box. For Chantel Reads All Day's Read Your Shelf Challenge, I had some difficulty with this one because the previous book that I read in November was 337 pages long. And so I need to read a book that is within 20 pages of that page count. And I looked through all of the books on my shelf, fiction and nonfiction, that I want to read and that I have not read yet. And they were either significantly more or significantly less than 337 pages. And so I found a few though, have a couple options. And then I found a few on my Kindle also that were close to that page count. So those were, happened to be nonfiction, 2 nonfiction books. So let me run through the list and then I'm going to do a random number generator between 1 and 5 and help you pick one. So number 1 is this that I actually just picked up at the library. If you saw my weekly wrap up last week, this lovely copy for only $1, really good condition. So I've only read one Agatha Christie. So this is the next one that I want to read by her. That's number 1. Number 2 would be this book that I've had for a while called Twain's End, which is kind of a historical fiction, but it's also biographical. It's based on Mark Twain. Anyways, and there was like a scandal involving slander and all that kind of stuff. So this is supposed to be kind of like, I don't know if it is like a biographical in the sense of truly figuring out what happened at the time, or just imaginative, like saying, you know, maybe this is what happened. Because apparently the woman, Isabel, didn't really say anything at the time, or ever. So she never spoke up and defended herself or cleared the record or whatever. So kind of curious about that, and I've had it for a while. Again, this is a beautiful copy, and look at this front flap here that opens up there. Anyways, that's number 2. Number 3 is it's a really beautiful copy, so I haven't read Children of the Stars by Mario Escobar. I'm sort of hoping this one isn't picked because I feel like it's probably going to be a pretty heavy read. And like I said, I'm not so sure I want to do a heavy read in December, but I have read another book by Mario Escobar. It was very good. Can't remember now what it was called, but set in World War II. So I don't really know what this one is about, except that it is also World War II, and that is book number 3. Book number 4 is a nonfiction book I have on my Kindle, The Secret Life of the American Musical, How Broadway Shows Are Built. And this, it's funny, this is what it gives me as the cover page. The cover is actually a lot nicer, but Kindle is not letting me, oh, there it is. It won't let me bring up the nice cover. But anyways, that one intrigues me. I've had it in my Kindle queue for a long time, and I just haven't read it yet. As has been well established, I love musicals, so I'm just really curious to read that one. So that is book number 4. Book number 5 is The Mind-Gut Connection. You can see that. There we go. The Mind-Gut Connection, which is how the hidden conversation within our bodies impacts our mood, our choices, and our overall health, by Emery Meyer, MD. So that one just interests me. Health is one of my topics that I like to read nonfiction books about. So that is number 5. So I am going to do a number generator. Let me see. Okay, so choosing a number from 1 to 5. The random number it generated, if you can see there, is number 1. So that is Agatha Christie, Death on the Nile. So I will add that to my stack of for sure reads. And another one that I want to read because it just came available to me at the library and I downloaded it and I just have a few weeks to read it. So I hope to get to it. Is a book that I was very curious about when I went to see Edgar Allan Poe's house. and the mystery surrounding his death. So I looked up to see if there was a book about his death, A Mystery of Mysteries, The Death and Life of Edgar Allan Poe. So it is one of the most apparently definitive books on the subject, so I'm looking forward to reading that. So that's going on my December TBR, hopefully. We'll see. So that's like 6 or 7 books. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. Which is really, no, we'll just say the trilogy is a really long book. So we'll just count it as 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 books that I really would like to get to. In addition to that, the Tea and Ink Society Classics Challenge prompt is to read a book in a place that you would like to visit. That's super easy for me because I like to travel. So any book that's set in an actual place is game for me because I'd sure love to visit there, even if I've already traveled there before. Like London, for example, wouldn't mind going again. So I have a whole list of classic books that I have on Kindle. Some of these I would like to get. I would like to get like one of those, you know, Christmas anthologies of like a really nice hardbound one with classic books, just to read through at Christmas time. I don't actually have one right now, which is kind of silly. So I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for that. But anyways, have a whole bunch of options. The good thing is that most Christmas stories are pretty short. So you can read them in an hour or less. A lot of times they're usually short stories or like a poem or an essay or a sermon or something. A lot of these are pretty like that size. So it doesn't take real long to read. So I have quite a few options. The first one is actually a larger one, and that is A Christmas Party by Georgette Heyer. Georgette Heyer is mostly famous for her Regency romance novels, but she also wrote some mysteries, and this is one. But it takes place at a Christmas house party, which is very intriguing to me, and I've not read anything by her but her Regency novels. So I'm curious to try out her other genres and see if I like them. That one is a longer though. I think it's over 400 pages, so may or may not get to them, but it's been on my to-read list for a couple Christmases in a row, so I just really need to get to it. And then someone had recommended a couple of books by Miss Read to me, and I don't know if this was one of them, but this was one that was available to me on Hoopla at my library. So that is No Holly for Miss Quinn by Miss Read. And that was written, I guess, like in the 70s. Does that sound right? That seemed like that was the copyright then. Then I have a couple of collections. One is called Classic Christmas Stories, and it has Christmas stories by Lucy Maud Montgomery, O. Henry, Willa Cather, Hans Christian Andersen, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Mark Twain, Harriet Beecher Stowe, Anthony Trollope. Basically, by the way, like authors are kind of like musicians in that, you know, musicians usually have at least one Christmas album, right? So authors usually have at least one Christmas story. So including classic and contemporary authors. So, and again, usually their stories, their Christmas stories are just like shorter stories. So easy to read. Anyway, so any of those authors sound really good to me. So I am definitely going to be dipping into that book. Then I have a digital version of Charles Dickens, all of his Christmas stories in one collection, which he wrote several stories besides A Christmas Carol. That one's the most famous, probably because it's the best, I guess, but I would be curious to read the other ones. I actually started reading The Cricket on the Hearth, which was a good one. So I don't think I've ever read the whole thing. Maybe I might have, but I want to read that one, finish that one also. And then there's another anthology I have, Christmas Around the Fire, which has books by Tolstoy, G.K. Chesterton, Dickens, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and others. And that one is, some of them are stories, some of them are poems, some of them are essays, some of them are sermons. So a sprinkling different mix of Christmas readings in that book. And then there's one that intrigues me, which is called A Very Russian Christmas, and it has stories by Tolstoy and Chekhov and some other more modern Russian authors. Then we have on Project Gutenberg a couple of options. One is A Wonderful Night by J.H. Snowden, which is a nonfiction kind of meditation on what happened to Christmas night. And then Christmas Outside Eden by, I'm not sure how you say his first name, Coningsby Dawson, which also intrigued me, which is about, it's connecting the story of Christmas to the fall of Adam and Eve. So again, a nonfiction one that's kind of a meditation that interests me. And then I found on Project Gutenberg The Romance of a Christmas Card by Kate Douglas Wiggin, who, if you recognize that name, she wrote the children's book Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, which I remember reading when I was young, and that one sounds interesting to me. And then Christmas Eve by Robert Browning, which I believe is a poem. I mean, he was a poet, so that makes sense, right? So those are all classics that I will choose from. Obviously not reading all of those this Christmas. Nobody has time for that, but I will pick and choose from those. Any of them qualify as being from a place that I want to visit because I would like to visit any of them. So that goes with that challenge. And then, just for fun, I found a bunch of novellas, short stories in a variety of genres. Some of these are romances, some of these are just Christmas stories, contemporary, some of them are historical fiction, a lot of different genres here. And I'm just going to quick read through this list. If I have time, I will find pictures and post them up here, but not really going to go into the details of any of them. Most of them you've probably heard of before. So these are the ones that I will be picking and choosing from that I have access to either through my library or other sources. So first of all, Catching Christmas by Terry Blackstock, which I have heard several booktubers talk about, and it sounds really good, so that one is high up on my list. Another one high up on my list that, was it Miriam again who had recommended this? I think so, and maybe some others. Last Christmas in Paris by Hazel Gaynor, which is an author I've been wanting to try out because I love historical fiction, and she writes historical fiction, and I just haven't yet, so I would like to read that one. The Christmas Shop by Melody Carlson, and Christmas. There's a whole series that I can get through the library called Christmas in This City by Casey Stockton, and I think those are all contemporary romances. And then this one I know nothing about. I don't even know if it's like clean or whatever. The reviews made it seem pretty good. I got it on Amazon Prime. Snowflake at Mistletoe Cottage by Katie Ginger. If you've read it or you know anything about that author, let me know whether I should bother or not. And then A Holly Jolly Christmas by Emma St. Clair, which is like a rom-com kind of story. I've read some by her that I liked, so I might like that one. You Make It Feel Like Christmas by Toni Shiloh, which has been making the rounds of BookTube recently. It's a new one this year, and I get the feeling that it has like Hallmark vibes, so I'm down for that. Then we have Faking Christmas by Cindy Steele, which I may or may not read because I can only get the audio book through my library, and I'm not big on audiobooks, especially romance novels. So we'll see, maybe not. This one is interesting to me, Mr. Dickens and His Carol by Samantha Silva, which is, I believe, told as fiction, but it's kind of about Charles Dickens in the process of writing the Christmas Carol. So I like the sound of that. This one people rave about, so I really would like to read it. The Wish Book Christmas by Lynn Austin. But again, I think that's an audiobook, so I'm not sure if I can get an actual copy. It would be a definite, but we'll see about the audiobook. And then Mistletoe Mismatch by Sally Britton. There's another one that she has I really want to read, but so far I don't have access to it at the library. Mistletoe for Felicity, maybe. And I'm not sure that I don't like to buy Christmas books because I read them once and then I'm done. But I may consider buying that one. And then An Old-Fashioned Texas Christmas by Karen Whitemeyer, which I do have. And I always like her books. Christmas on King Street by Ashley Clark. And I've read a couple of her books that were really good, but I've not read the Christmas one, so that one sounds good. And then finally, All's Fair in Love and Christmas by Sarah Monzon, which looks like a cute rom-com. So I think I remembered everything. Huge pile of possibilities for December. I'm mostly going to be a mood read in December. Who knows if I will get to those 8 books that I really would like to. I might not. We'll see. A couple of them for sure, but the others I'd really like to, but we'll see what happens. December is a busy month, but at the same time, the last 2 weeks I'm off school and we're not planning on going anywhere really, so I should have some time just to curl up and read all sorts of Christmassy books, which I am looking forward to. So that is my December TBR. What are you looking forward to reading this December? What do you reach for in December? I reach for cozy reads, shorter reads, fun reads in December, just because life is busy and I don't have a lot of time to think. And when I do have time to think, I don't want to be thinking heavy things. So I really prefer to read lighter reads. So let me know what you're looking forward to reading this December, and I will see you next time.